Jiva interprets this to mean that a low caste Vaishnava is more revered than a Brahmin, but that this verse does not specifically permit him to act as a Karmakanda Brahmin. The primary reason for this is that if such sacrifices are outside the scope of a Vaishnava's duties or desires. Vishwanath Chakrabarti, himself a Brahmin, has elaborated further on this point to some degree, stating that since such sacrificial activities are lower on the spiritual hierarchy than direct service to Krishna, they are not to be taken up even by Brahmin Vaishnavas. In other words, Gaudiya Vaishnavism historically did not interfere with the social status quo. Siddhanta Sarasvati's ideas were radically opposed to this vision, as he tried to democratize the Brahminical function and open it, so to speak, to people from all castes and races. Narasingha Maharaj also repeats the received Gaudiya Mat tradition, no doubt heard from Sarasvati himself, that Bipin Bihari arrogantly claimed that he, as a Brahmin, was in a position to bless Raghunath, a Shudra. This kind of a statement is obviously inflammatory. All evidence indicates that Raghunath, as a humble Vaishnava, will have observed the social protocol of the time and will have offered due respect to any Brahmin. There is external protocol and inner spiritual achievement. The external protocol is based on social position, not on inner worth. Haridas Thakur observed the protocols of Jagannath Puri despite being universally recognized as a man who was as holy, if not more so, than the Brahmins who served Jagannath. He never attempted to enter the temple there. Sanatan also respected the Puri Brahmins' ritual purity out of extreme humility and avoided coming in contact with them. No doubt, caste, prestige and position are dangerous spiritually and also lead to social abuse. As the Vaishnava is supposed to be indifferent to Varnashram, elevation to Brahminical duties through his religious activities or spiritual achievement is clearly counter-indicated. We are, of course, dealing with a feudal mentality that functions within the static agrarian culture of the Indian Middle Ages. Some kind of spiritual egalitarianism may have been inherent in Vaishnavism. I think it is not excessive to say that no external transformation of social hierarchies ever took place in Gaudiya Vaishnava, nor that it was ever intended. Scriptures like the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which suggest that where possible one should take a guru who is a Brahmin, in the absence of which one should take a guru who is in a higher caste than oneself, are marginalized by the Gaudiya Mat as a mere concession to the caste-conscious times. Nevertheless, their very sanction in Gaudiya Vaishnava rulebooks will indicate the maintaining existing Hindu caste conventions was not an aberration in Vaishnava society. To summarize, it will appear that Bipin Bihari took the conventional position held by Orthodox Gaudiya Vaishnavism prior to Sarasvati Thakur in holding that thought a Vaishnava was spiritual superior to a Brahmin that did not accord a Vaishnava any specific social rights. Sarasvati strongly contests this social conservatism, and his Daiva Varnashram doctrine was a powerful element in his preaching movement. To establish Bipin Bihari's position, however, we are on shaky territory, for we are not in possession of any of his writings, nor do we have an objective account of the Baligai meeting that could shed further light on these controversies. Since Bipin Bihari's position at worst would have been conventional, it does not seem that it in itself it would have been cause of Bhaktivinod Thakur to reject him, and of course, as stated, there is no evidence that he did so. More significant and troubling for disciples in the line of Bhaktivinod is evidence that Bipin Bihari Goswami rejected Bhaktivinod because of preaching untruths about the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As mentioned above, Bipin Bihari was one of the first directors of the committee to oversee the worship of Sriman Mahaprabhu, newly established at the Yoga Pit in Mayapur by Bhaktivinod Thakur in 1891. However, though many significant personalities in the Vaishnava world participate in these events, not everyone accepted this as the true birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Not long afterwards, controversy arose when a certain Braya Mohandas Babaji, an engineer in his life before renunciation, declared that the so-called Yoga Pit in Mayapur was false and that the real one was in Ranishore, a suburb in Navadvip that had recently been reclaimed from the receding Ganges. After the disappearance of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in 1914, this controversy became quite shrill. A nasty exchange went on between the followers of Saraswati Thakur and the Navadvip adherents. This time, however, Bipin Bihari Goswami sided with the Navadvip Goswamis and in 1919 rejected the claims of Bhaktivinod and his son in a small newspaper of his own called Gauranga Sevaka Patrika, unhappily with the Mayapur controversy. In order to show his commitment to the Navadvip, Bipin Bihari held a festival in honor to Vamshi Badananda Thakur in Kulia in 1919. He disappeared the same year. Since this rejection took place after Bhaktivinod's disappearance, it may well be that Saraswati and his disciples' heavy-handed approach to the devotee contributed to Bipin Bihari's making a break of this sort. However, it is not unlikely that he became convinced that Bhaktivinoda had willfully fabricated evidence to promote the Mayapur birth site. Bhaktivinod Thakur and the Three Books. Did Bhaktivinod Thakur fabricate evidence to promote the Mayapur birth site? I cannot answer the question where the historical and geographical evidence is concerned. However, I am seriously disturbed by the evidence that Bhaktivinod Thakur manufactured literacy evidence to support the validity of Chaitanya as avatar and the nine island theory of Navadvip, which in turn is meant to promote the Mayapur birthplace. In the 1890s, the Thakur wrote a Bengali verse, Navadvip Dhamma Mahatmya, which he published under his own name. This book is a pretty typical Sthala Mahatmya style of text. Most Sthala Puranas introduce many Puranic or Vedic personality and ascribe to them activities and words that glorify the place in question. The events described in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya are quite radical. Madhva and Ramanuja are not the only names that are dropped in this book. There also are demigods, Vedi rishis, and other historical figures like Jayadeva, all of whom spend time in Mahaprabhu's Dham and have premonitions of his future appearance there. Had Navadvip Dham Mahatmya been written in Puranic Sanskrit 200 or 300 years earlier, it might have been insinuated into the Skanda Purana or Padma Purana and achieved canonical status, but as it is, the Thakur decided to publish it in Bengali and in his own name. This could only mean that he was either sufficiently convinced of his own position as a realized Vaishnava who could claim to have mystic visions, or this sort of be believed, or that he never intended for it to be taken literally as history, but as a fanciful work in glorification of Mahaprabhu. The Gaudiya Mat and others who believe in the divine status of Bhaktivinod take this work as literal truth, but to those who do not share, it is a gracious fabrication. The Vaishnavas no doubt believe that in some dimension or alternate reality, these events were not only possible but historically true, even if they were not necessarily so in our universe. In this sense, we can compare it to his other work like Harinam Chintamani, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote as a conversation between Haridas and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri, or Jaiva Dharma, which include characters like Gopal Guru Goswami and Dhyana Chandra, a kind of historical fiction as it were. There is a certain literary license that had been taken here. and is not problematic as long as we recognize the gender. However, 3 books that the Thakur published as ancient works were almost certainly composed by him. These 3, Chaitanya Upanishad, 1887, Prema Vaivarta, 1906, and Navadvip Satakam, have certain common characteristics. They were all connected to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the glorification of his birthplace. The motives are fairly clear. The Thakur was trying to promote Mahaprabhu's birthplace, and he did it in a fashion time-honored in India. He simply wrote the material he needed and attributed it to someone who had historical credibility, rather than attributing his work to Vyasa or Narottam Das Thakur, as he did the counterfeiters of the past. He used the names of Jagadananda Pandit and Prabodhananda Sarasvati. Bhaktivinod Thakur did in fact publish many rare manuscripts of genuine Vaishnava literature, such as Sri Krishna Vijaya, many Padyavalis, etc. He was not the only one in his time who yielded to the temptation of counterfeiting. Nevertheless, I personally find it problematic that someone who contributes so much to the Vaishnava religion, who worked so hard to instill a spirit of morality and honesty into Vaishnavism, whose life was in general a monument of commitment to service to Mahaprabhu and his principles, who in his worldly life was a justice and so presumable knew a thing or two about ethic and the law, so fit to take such a chance. Furthermore, in view to his familiarity with scholarly historical method, it is hard to understand how he thought that he could get away with it. Perhaps he thought his personal probity put him above suspicion, but he really thinks that a single manuscript found by chance in a mysterious circumstances only to disappear again after its publication will not cause people to examine the published text more carefully? And if that text contains elements of language and content that not only point to a modern origin, but to the very person who claimed to have found the manuscript, will our suspicions not be confirmed? I can only say that in his enthusiasm to see Mahaprabhu's birthplace be glorified and become a center of pilgrimage, as he has indeed become, the Thakur took a chance with his personal reputation and that of his religion. He succeeded in making Mayapur a magnet for pilgrims from around the world. His disciples, grand disciples, and great grand disciples have succeeded in creating an environment that is quite extraordinary. Nevertheless, we cannot help but wonder at the massive bindu that stains his otherwise sparkling white cloth. Can we not expect people to ask the question that naturally arises? How can a religion that needs lies to spread its message make any claims to be truth? It does not give me pleasure to remind us who are accustomed to thinking negatively of Bipin Bihari Goswami as someone who was rejected for his caste, consciousness, and bad habits like tobacco smoking, that he publicly renounced Bhaktivinod Thakur and his disciples shortly before dying in 1999. The reason he gave for this drastic act was precisely for preaching falsehood connected to the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is easy to condemn Bipin Bihari Prabhu for having some self-interest in this matter, but the doubts that have been brought up in this article tend to give justification to the Goswami. I find it rather painful to bring the matter up, and I do not so in the full expectation of being heartily condemned, but I would like to see those who love the holy name and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu face this problem head on, much in the way that Roman Catholics have decided to accept the terrible things in the history, things which are many times worse than those we have mentioned here, and still find a way to justify their faith. Faith has to be honest, to be genuine, and such honesty has to extend to our forefathers, even those to whom we have attributed the highest spiritual perfection. It is a shock to accept that our divinities might have had human failings, but I think this is necessary step in facing our own failing. Human psychology is such that we often compensate for our own human frailties by placing faith in someone else. We say, I am not perfect, but my guru is. I have no personal qualification, but this does not matter because the parampara is perfect. That is a psychological trick and results in ego inflation. By identifying with the guru and the parampara, we appropriate their perfection and their authority for ourselves. Unfortunately, this expands into the kind of distorted personal psychology that is not only historically present in ISKCON, but it in many of the interactions between devotees who are otherwise sincere. Wow, a great work, investigation and writing by Jagadananda Das. I hope you are doing well wherever you are at this moment. This book is available on the description of the video. There is a link. I am sharing interesting books and rare writings on Gaudiya Vaishnavism every Friday on my Patreon. So you can help this channel, you can help me to continue this research and discovering of the truth on Gaudiya Vaishnavism by joining me on Patreon. Also, videos and music is being shared for free if you are part of the membership. I am preparing a journey to Navadvip and Calcutta to investigate different topics on Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the land of Mahaprabhu. So if you want to support me, you can do it directly through my PayPal. Ask me on my email gaurasanga@gmail.com how to help me on this trip. I need some basic support in order to cover the trip, staying, food, and the most important, translations from Bangla to English. The same material that you will be reading and enjoying in this channel later. Give me a hand if you want, if you feel like supporting this mission. Join me on Patreon. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next. Mahavira Ramani Ki Jai Jai Nitai Jai Gaur Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shyam.